And welcome back to OpenLine as we continue our discussion on the voting rights bill with Dr. John Vile from MTSU. We want to thank everyone who has already called in throughout our program. We've got one more caller I want to make sure we get to. Judy, you are live on OpenLine. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
Yes, I have a comment about ballots who are handed out to people who in memory care facilities, nursing homes, that really are not aware of even who's running. And I'm speaking on behalf of a relative of mine. And when I asked them who they were going to vote for, their comment to me was, I don't know, they'll tell me what to do, which in my book tells me if the relative is not aware of who's even voting, they're going to mark it the way they want to. And I really have a problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you for calling.
That seems to me to be a legitimate concern. I don't know how widespread it is. I mean, you would think the professional thing to do would be, if you knew someone was non compos mentis and, really did not understand even who was running, that you would simply keep the ballot from them. But I don't know if there's legislation that requires or, provides a penalty one way or the other there.
Understandable. Well, we've been talking for the last 45 minutes about voting rights. I want to broaden things just a little bit. Obviously, so many other big issues to touch on. We can't get to them all. But another one really in the spotlight, just especially in the last 24 hours, the situation with Ukraine and Russia that we are monitoring closely.
This could be a real game changer. I sort of hope that it's not. I hope that it's, my friend Andrei Korobkov from MTSU, who's much more an expert on this than I am, initially at least was saying that Putin has already won in the sense that his troops are there. If the leader of Ukraine makes an obvious mistake, he could step in. But even if he doesn't, he's gotten the world's attention. Biden's talking about possibly having a joint meeting with him and that sort of thing. But on the other hand, particularly, there's a famous book by Barbara Tuchman about the beginning of World War I. And it looks like neither side really actually intended for it to start. But both sides had alliances, and one would make a move here, and they'd make a counter move here just in case. And, we're dealing with nuclear powers, the United States and the USSR, and fortunately nobody's, threatening to use them right now. But anytime one country invades or threatens to invade another country, particularly in Europe, which is, traditionally sort of the balance of power, it's a cause for concern. And, hopefully we have some, it looks like the American diplomats who have been on the scene are fairly level-headed people. They seem to be indicating to Russia that if it takes this move, that there will be consequences, certainly of an economic part, and we are sending weapons there. But there's always a danger in these confrontations that you can have rational actors who end up acting irrationally because they misread signals from the other side. Just a day or two ago, China sent something like 24 jets into the airspace over Taiwan, which of course they claim. Taiwan had seen this before and they didn't. But what if they had tried to shoot them down? Could that have become a provocation for a major war? So, if there's ever a time for cool-headed leadership, this is it.
And everyone's favorite topic, I guess we can't get through a show without talking about COVID, right? It seems like we've been talking about it for 100 years, but here we are, still talking about it. And we would love to not talk about it, but the fact is it's still here and the pandemic is still ongoing.
It is, and I think we're seeing, there's a lot of pushback against government mandates. And I understand that. We're sort of a freedom-loving people. On the other hand, those who can't get vaccinated, particularly children, are often put at risk by people who could and don't. And, it's in some states it's become a Republican Democratic issue, but What's interesting is there are movements, demonstrations all over the world on both sides of this. Germany, Sweden, Australia. We're not the only ones handling it. And I guess if there's anything that maybe we have a consensus on, is that we don't want to go to the extremes that we see right now in the People's Republic of China. We don't want to completely close down everything when you get a single case of COVID that you probably could have isolated. Or I read one story of, the woman was having a date with her boyfriend, and he ended up being stuck there for 2 months because they wouldn't let him move out of the apartment. So, or at least that's what he was telling her, right? Maybe the story changed in the process of being retold. I don't know.
Well, certainly, a lot on President Biden's plate right now as we also look at the stock market, everything else we're tracking right now. What's your general assessment of his first year in office? What are your thoughts on how things have gone for him?
I am pleased that I am not seeing or listening to a presidential tweet every night. There are some people who probably miss that. I'm not among them. I will say that among both Republican and presidential aspirants for the presidency, all of them promise too much. We have a system of divided government, 3 branches, national government, state governments. No one person wields enough power to take care of every problem and to do it instantly. No one is going to have the foresight of, how many masks you should have ordered 6 months ago. Or, do you need 3-shot regimen or a 4-shot regimen? How long do you need to wear a mask in school? And I guess I'm inclined, to give leaders of each party a little bit of leeway here and just say, could I do any better? Well, as a professor, I probably think that I could, but I probably wouldn't, We have a really complex world, and particularly this is true when it comes to economics. We have inflation right now. Well, is it the spending bill? Some people say so. On the other hand, maybe it's supply chain. Maybe it's COVID related. And often, consequences of a spending bill or a governmental policy don't show up to 2 or 3 years later. So maybe it has something to do with a policy that was enacted during the Trump administration. It's often very difficult to tell.
As we look ahead, try to look into our crystal ball, as we love to do. Obviously he's going to be dealing with Ukraine. He's going to be dealing with COVID. Any other legislative stuff you think will be high priority? Will it be Build Back Better Act, trying to bring that back? Or what else do you think he may be pushing for in the next year or so?
Well, this is a little off point because it won't necessarily be him. But, we got a lot of ongoing investigations right now, And there's a lot of finger pointing, but there's a lot of blame still to be assessed and distributed in terms of, what happened on January the 6th, this kind of thing. And, there's so many people who are just absolutely convinced that Trump is going to be the nominee of the Republican Party. And he's certainly surprised people in the past, and he might. But there's so many potential landmines between now and 2.5 years, a little over 2 3/4 years from now, that I certainly wouldn't put on any bets as to who the next, and with Biden's age, I know he said he's going to run again, but maybe he'll be able to, maybe he won't. So we could have a lot of surprises in store.
Certainly have a lot to watch as we get into another eventful year of politics, both nationally and locally. Of course, we have a lot going on Tennessee level as well, and here even just in Nashville. But we're going to take another short break. Thank you, Dr. Vile. We appreciate all of your thoughts and comments tonight, and we will be right back.